Last week we talked about two of the most important qualities we should cultivate in our lives as Christians: compassion and love. And we concentrated mostly on compassion. Today I'd like for us to think a little more about love. There are numerous passages in the New Testament that talk about love. They tell us that God loves us. In fact, one passage says God is love. There are passages that tell us that we are supposed to love others. In fact, this is a direct commandment from Jesus himself. A new commandment I give you, that you love one another. And so as Christians, love for us is not an option. We have to love. But what exactly is love? You know, a lot of churches have reader boards that they put little slogans on. A while back I saw one that said, "Fall in love with Jesus." And that was, to me, a little creepy. I never thought of Jesus as someone I would fall in love with. You know, maybe it's because I'm a man and he was a man. But even if I were a woman, I don't think I'd see Jesus as someone to fall in love with. And when I saw that sign, it brought to my mind a soap opera type of setting. You have this man and woman sitting in an expensive restaurant. There's a white tablecloth. They've got big glasses of wine and rose petals sprinkled on the table. And she leans over and says, "I love you." So somehow or another, that just was creepy for me. So love is a word that has many meanings for us. We love our spouse. We love our children. We love our dog. We love ice cream. We love going to the beach. We love Christmas. We love so much stuff. And really, what does it mean? Well, psychologists and philosophers have struggled with a definition for the word love. And they can't get one, nail it down, because we use that word in so many different contexts. It has so many different shades of meaning that it's hard to nail down exactly what it means. And so the best thing to do is just look at the uses of it in the New Testament. In Matthew, somebody asked Jesus, "What is the greatest commandment?" Jesus said, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself." So we're supposed to love God and our neighbor. But what does that mean? Does it mean we're supposed to feel something for them? Some kind of emotion? Some kind of affection? Is love a sense of feeling at all? In Matthew chapter 5, Jesus said, "You have heard it said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, pray for them who despitefully use you and persecute you." So see, if we look at love in that context, Jesus says, love your enemies, and then he goes on and uses action words. Bless, do good to, pray. And so it's not unreasonable to think that love, in this sense that Jesus was talking about here, is an action. It's not something you feel, it's something you do. You bless them, you do good for them, you pray for them. The same point is found in Luke chapter 6. Jesus says, love your enemies, do good and lend, hoping for nothing in return. Again, by the context here, love your enemies. It's not a feeling, because Jesus goes right on and uses action words. Do good and lend. And see, these are things that we do. These are actions, not feelings. And so love in that sense is an action. In Luke chapter 10, somebody came up to Jesus and said, "What must I do to inherit eternal life?" Jesus answered, "What is written in the law? How do you read it?" And the man said, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself. Jesus answered, you are right. Again the man said, who is my neighbor? Jesus told the parable of the Good Samaritan. There's a man who was beaten up and robbed and left for dead on the side of the road. A priest came by and did nothing. A Levite, who was some other kind of Jewish religious person, came by and did nothing. A Samaritan came by and bandaged the man's wound, put him on his donkey, took him to an inn, and took care of him. And when he had to leave the next day, he paid the innkeeper and said, take care of him. If you spend more than this, I'll pay you the next time I come through. You see, this explains what it meant to love your neighbor. This explains who your neighbor is. Your neighbor is anybody in need. And loving your neighbor means that you take care of their needs. The man needed his wounds bandaged, nursed back to health. Whatever their need is, you take care of them. And your neighbor is anyone with need. In Luke chapter 16, Jesus said, no servant can serve two masters, for he will either hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and wealth. Here again we have Jesus talking about love. And he's talking about it in the context of serving. That's an action. He's not talking about it in the context of how we feel. The best way to think of that word serve in the New Testament, it literally means to serve someone what they need. And the best way to think of it is a server in a restaurant, the one who brings you your food. You see, serving God in the context of that word, oddly enough, did not mean worshiping God or doing things for, it means giving God what God needs. You see, in ancient times, the feeling was that the gods needed feeding, and that's where that whole idea of worship and service to God, you gave them what they needed. But at any rate, the word serve in that context does not mean affection or feeling. It means action. In John chapter 14, Jesus said, if a man loves me, he will keep my sayings. My Father will love him. We will come unto him and remain beside him. Here again is love in the context of doing. The person who loves Jesus will do something. That means you keep Jesus' commandment. And then God will do something. God comes and abides with you. That's what love is. It's an action, not a feeling. In John chapter 15, Jesus said, my commandment is that you love one another as I have loved you. Greater love has no man than this, that he lay down his life for his friend. Again, it's not a feeling, it's an action. You lay down your life for your friends. That's greater love has no man than this. Not that you feel for them, but that you do something. You lay down your life for them. The same idea of love as action is found outside the Gospels. In Romans chapter 5, Paul is talking about Jesus' love for the ungodly, and he says, but God commended his love toward us, in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. And so the love of God for us is not a feeling. It's not affection. It is an action. God's love for us, Christ died for us. It is love in action. 1 John chapter 3 says, whoever has the world's goods and sees his brother in need and shuts up his heart from him, how does the love of God abide in him? My children, let us not love in word or in tongue, but in deed and in truth. Fairly straightforward. Love manifests itself in actions, not in feelings. if we have God's love in us, when we see someone in need, love means we help them. 1 John 5:3. For this is the love of God, that we keep his commandments. Again, love here is something we do. It's not talking about how you feel towards God. It's talking about if you love God, you do something. You keep his commandments. So from all these verses and passages that we've looked at, we know the New Testament is talking about love in the sense of action. Doing. It's not talking about love in the sense of affection or feelings or emotion. We are told to love our neighbor. And from the parable of the Good Samaritan, we know that our neighbor is anyone in need. And loving your neighbor means responding to their needs. That doesn't necessarily mean you have feelings for them. Doesn't mean you like them. Doesn't mean you have any affection for them at all. It just means that love in this case is helping them with their needs. You see, it's not a question of how you feel. It's a question of what you do. We might not love people in the sense of having affection and warm, fuzzy feelings about them. But we love them in the sense of doing as action. And that is how Jesus wants us to live. Now there are a few things to think about in response to this. Notice that in what is called the Great Commandment, Jesus says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. As you love yourself. You see, some people pass over that, but Jesus is clear. There's obviously nothing wrong with loving yourself. Frankly, there's not only nothing wrong with it, Jesus told us to do it. He said, love your neighbor as you love yourself. So when we look at loving our neighbor as doing things for our neighbor, we also look at loving ourselves as doing things for ourselves. Sometimes Christians get the wrong idea. That you're supposed to sacrifice everything and do nothing for yourself. But Jesus says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. You see, there's no hierarchy. Everybody's on the same level. Everybody's on the same level. There's no hierarchy. There's not even any hierarchy between Christian and non-Christian. Because what did we hear Paul say? While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. So there's only one neighbor. According to Jesus, your neighbor is important, but you are to love your neighbor, but also love yourself. Then there's something else to consider. Let's say that we take Jesus' words seriously, and we set out to love our neighbor. We do things for them. We take action, but then assume that love is not returned. We do things for them, and they don't appreciate one bit. Not one bit. In fact, they take it for granted. And that hurts. You know, I think all of us, we want to love people, but we all want to be loved back. You know, we want to be loved back. And when we're not, it hurts. When we try to be loving towards somebody else and nothing comes back our way, it makes us feel bad. It sure does. You know, there's nowhere in the Bible where it says that we will be judged by how many people love us. You know, occasionally you see these funerals of these so-called big religious figures, and they get all these people up there and they say, oh, how many people love you and all this, that, and the other. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that you will be judged by how many people love you. It's only who you love. The standard is not how many people love you. The standard is how many people did you love. The issue is not that your love is not returned. The issue is, what did you do? Did you love others? That's the issue. Remember, we heard in the Gospel of Luke, do good and lend, hoping for nothing in return. Hoping for nothing in return. It's a self-giving thing. Sometimes when people don't respond, it hurts. When we do for others, and it doesn't matter to them, but they don't care or something, it hurts. But we just have to let that go. In Matthew chapter 5, Jesus said, if you love them that love you, what reward do you have? Do not even the tax collectors do the same? If you greet your brothers only, what do you do more than others? Do not even the tax collectors do that? Everybody loves people who they know will love them back. Everybody is willing to do good things and do favors and help out somebody if they know that when they're in the same situation, they'll be helped too. But you see, what Jesus is telling us to do is to love and do good, no matter whether they ever love or do good back to you. And then again, we come back to the thing. Nowhere is it said that we are held accountable for whether or not other people love and do for us. The only thing we will be held accountable for is whether we have done and loved others. Now there's something else to consider. We love others. That is, that we do things for them and help them because we're commanded to. So some people might object and say, well, you know, if the only reason you're doing this is because Jesus told you to and you're afraid not to, is that really love? Well, I guess not, if you define love as an emotion or a feeling. But if you go with all these different passages we've looked at this morning and define love as an action, as something you do, then you know really the feelings don't matter. Our own personal feelings, our emotions, our affections toward people is not the issue. Jesus does not call us to like people. He calls us to love people in the sense of stepping up to the plate when they are in need. And as we talked about last week, maybe if we keep doing the action, someday the feelings will come, but maybe not. And whether or not they do come is not the issue. Remember, the issue is not our feelings, it is our action. And so the important thing to remember is that the feeling type of love, the affection type of love is not what's commanded by Jesus. What Jesus expects from us is the action type of love, because that's the example he set for us.